Good Friday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Conversation Daily News. Glad you all could be with us. Well, we made it to the end of another week, and can you believe the beginning of a brand new month? So welcome to December. Of course, you have your news headlines coming up on this Friday. Have a message from my book, Word That Choose to Live By. And in today's Entertainment Spotlight, this week, I spoke with Dean Koocher, who's the co-founder of Kidstream TV. We talk about how they're able to provide quality programming for children. You don't want to miss that. Enjoy today's broadcast. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with your Friday headlines. In international news, Israeli military confirms the release of 6 Israeli hostages from captivity in Gaza Strip. The Israeli military says 6 Israeli hostages have been released from captivity in the Gaza Strip at the time of this report. The army said the Red Cross transferred the hostages to Egypt late Thursday. They arrived hours after 2 additional hostages were turned over to Israel separately. From Egypt, the newly freed hostages were to be transferred to Israel to be reunited with their families after nearly 8 weeks in captivity. It marked the 7th straight night of hostage releases under a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Israel was to free 30 Palestinian prisoners later in the evening under the deal. The ceasefire is expected to expire today, though international mediators are working to extend it. Roughly 140 hostages are believed to remain in Hamas captivity. Hamas began freeing Israeli hostages Thursday in exchange for the release of more Palestinian prisoners under a last-minute deal to extend their ceasefire in Gaza by another day. But any further renewal of the truce, now in its 7th day, could prove more daunting since Hamas is expected to set a higher price for many of the remaining hostages. Hamas freed 2 Israeli women Thursday afternoon, and in the evening, 6 more hostages were handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza. International pressure has mounted for the truce to continue as long as possible after weeks of Israeli bombardment and a ground campaign following Hamas' deadly October 7th attack on Israel that triggered this particular war. Israel has vowed to resume the fighting with the goal of dismantling Hamas once the ceasefire ends. The talks appear to be growing tougher, with Hamas already having freed most of the women and children it kidnapped on October the 7th. The militants are expected to make greater demands in return for freeing scores of civilian men and soldiers. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other top officials on his 3rd visit to the region since the start of the war, said he hoped the ceasefire could be extended and more hostages could be released. Blinken also said that if Israel resumes the war and moves against southern Gaza to pursue Hamas, it must do so in compliance with international humanitarian law and must have a clear plan in place to protect civilians. He said Israeli leaders understood that the massive levels of civilian life and displacement scale we saw in the north not to be repeated in the south. Most of Gaza's population is now crammed into the south with no exit, however, raising questions over how an Israeli ground assault backed by bombardment can avoid heavy civilian casualties. Qatar and Egypt, which have played a key role in mediating, are seeking to prolong the deal by another 2 days, according to the head of Egypt's State Information Service. In national news, GOP Representative George-Santos refuses to resign and warns his expulsion from Congress would set a precedent. A defiant Representative George-Santos is refusing to resign and warned on Thursday that his expulsion from Congress before being convicted in a court of law would establish a precedent that is going to be the undoing of a lot of members of this body, he said. The first-term Republican congressman from New York could well become just the 6th member of the House to have been expelled by his colleagues. Republicans and Democrats have offered resolutions to remove him, and the House expected to vote on one of them today. While Santos survived 2 earlier expulsion efforts, a critical House Ethics Committee report released on November the 16th has convinced more members that his actions merit the House's most severe punishment. In more national news, the world remembers Henry Kissinger, who died at the age of 100. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger died Wednesday at the age of 100, exerted far-reaching influence on global affairs under Presidents Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford between 1969 and 1977, earning both vilification and the Nobel Peace Prize. For 8 relentless years, first as National Security Advisor, later as Secretary of State, and for a time as both, Kissinger played a dominant role in foreign policy. He conducted the first shuttle diplomacy in the quest for Middle East peace, He used secret negotiations to restore ties between the United States and China. He initiated the Paris talks that ultimately provided a face-saving means to get the United States out of war in Vietnam, and he pursued agreements with the Soviet Union that led to arms control agreements. In entertainment news, NASCAR to include streaming a new 7-year media rights deal that welcomes Amazon, TNT, and Max. NASCAR has added 2 new partners and streaming elements to a 7-year media rights deal announced on Wednesday that will run from 2025 through the 2031 season. And finally, in business news, Wall Street closed out its best month in more than a year. Stocks closed mostly higher Thursday as the market ended November with its biggest monthly gain in more than a year. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. It's now time for a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. Enjoy. Good Friday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Words I Choose to Live By. The reason you seem to be bombarded with the events of life is because your Heavenly Father knows you have the strength to endure it. The enemy says you will only be faithful in the good times. Like Job, prove him wrong, and watch how the sun returns and the blessings flow. You were born to win, so let's get to it. Have an amazing Friday and enjoy your weekend. Dean Koocher of Kidstream TV is featured in today's Entertainment Spotlight, right here on Conversations Daily News. For Conversations Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with Entertainment Spotlight. Dean Koocher of Kidstream TV join me on Conversations Live, the radio show, to talk about how they're able to offer quality programming for children. Here's a bit of our conversation. Dean, thank you again for the time. Really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Cyrus, and hello to everybody out there. Really, really glad to be able to talk to y'all.
Well, Dean, this is an important conversation, and it's a timely one for parents, especially busy parents that are out there. You know, they want to be able to provide, of course, something engaging for the kids, but something they can feel good about their kids watching. So I want to begin there. What has it been like for you with Kidstream to be able to provide that, something that's entertaining, but also educational in a safe way for parents and kids?
I think you're right on, Cyrus. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there for parents and caregivers to find for their kids, and not all of it's great, but we really take a lot of time to select things that we feel, one, will be entertaining, but also enriching, and things that the parents will also approve of, because there's stuff out there that your kids may be attracted to the same way they might be attracted to junk food, but it might not all be as good for them as other stuff. So we spend a lot of time what we call curating Kidstream to find really good stuff. Some classic stuff that you might have grown up with, but also stuff that's brand new that no one else has here in the U.S. as well.
So let's dive into that a little bit more, Dean, because I love the fact when I was prepping for this segment and kind of reading about Kidstream and, of course, the impact it's been able to have, that is one of the things that people really appreciate. The other thing, of course, with the subscription, of course, it being ad-free, I know nobody, including kids, like being able to go through 15, 30-second commercials as well. Why was that important for you guys when it came to the business model, to make sure that it was something that was engaging, but also, of course, the kids could dive right into?
You know what, we really, I'm glad you asked that question. We really believe in advertising free and commercial free stuff for these young ones. You know, adults like us, we love advertising in certain ways. It's fun. But for kids, we feel it's that they should not necessarily be subject to that while they're entertaining and unwinding and learning.
Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. Be back with you guys on Monday with more news, message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By, and of course your Entertainment Spotlight. Until then, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Daily News today. Now let's go make today amazing. Take care.